Welcome to Learning Photography with Duck. Here's your host, Duck.
Oh boy, talk about a little bump in the road to start off with. Thank you for joining me. My name is Duck, and this is Learning Photography with Duck. Today we are, as you can see, Photoshop edition. So we will be discussing all things Photoshop. I just kind of put together a bunch of little tips and tricks that may help your editing. So I don't really have any one major big lesson. I figure I take it easy on you guys because the last couple of sessions, I really fried some brains. So we'll do a few things and then we'll get into some Q&A. I was talking before we started recording, I was talking with Bonnie, and she's got an awesome question that we'll get to in a little bit. So let's see. Let me switch over to, actually before we get started, what I want to do is remind you once again that on the 26th, we are doing a multiplicity photo shoot. I've mentioned it in the past couple of sessions. And this is where we get together with a partner, shoot multiple images of ourselves, and then combine them into a single scene in Photoshop. The other thing was a night photography session that was requested by a couple of people during a live workshop that I did recently. And I did some scouting, and the initial thought was to go down to New Haven and take a nice scenic photograph of the Q Bridge with all the, pretty lights and everything. And I did some preliminary scouting and found a nice location that's going to allow us to take the entire bridge. And what I'm looking at, and I have to actually get to the location. I'm going to take a drive tomorrow and do an actual on-site location scouting, because there are 3 days this month where we're going to have a full moon that I think if I line the location up properly with the bridge, we can get the full moon above the bridge. And we're going to have a very short window. And unfortunately, that short window falls during the week. And it's going to be either a Wednesday, a Thursday, or a Friday night. Unfortunately, I can't control the moon. So we have to go with what nature gives us. So I am thinking probably Wednesday or Thursday night. And in the case that maybe the weather is bad, we can we can postpone it for the following day and at least try to get one day in. All right. So anyhow, like I said, I'm scouting the location tomorrow. So look for the event to be posted on the Facebook page, either sometime tomorrow or the following day. Okay.
When do you think it's going to be, Doug?
It's going to be the 23rd, 24th, or 25th. So it's the 3 days leading up just before the multiplicity shoot. And if you are interested, the way I am going to figure it out is I have an app. I'm sure you've all heard of the photographer's Ephemeris. It's a very popular application for landscape photographers because it lets you know where the position of the sun is going to be throughout the day and where the position of the moon is going to be throughout the evening. And it gives you the sunrises, sunsets, blue hour, and all that. So you can plan your photo shoot around the times that are most beneficial to whatever it is you want to photograph. There's another one that I use on my cell phone, it's called Photopills. All right, like what like an aspirin, Photopills. And what it has on it, and I don't know if I can show it properly over to Zoom here, but what it has is the ability to use what is called augmented reality. All right, so it's called Photopills. Oh, maybe I can show you. Okay, and there's a little planner. You can go by the sun if you want to do daylight shooting. But the one I'm interested in is the one with the moon. And it shows you all the phases of the moon, lets you know when the moonrise, when the moonset is, and all that. And it says we're going to have a full moon on the 24th. Okay? So if you're aware, the day before and the day after are suitable, even though it's not technically the full moon. It's close enough that, it allows us that 3-day window to go and look at it. But the nice thing about it is that I can select that. I can go to down bottom where it says augmented reality. And I don't know if you'll be able to see this properly. No, see, it's going to pick up. It's going to pick up. Let me see if I can. All right. See that grid? And it says east, southeast, and all that. I don't know if I can show it properly here. All right. Yeah. All right. And then see that diagonal line? That diagonal line is the indicator of the path of the moon. Okay. So you can see that it's going to crest the horizon at 8:52, and it's going to slowly rise up to about a good, I think 5 degree at 10 p.m. All right. So it allows me to go on location, hold it up, and I'll be able to see the background. All right. If I see, you can see the background. So it superimposes that grid over whatever you're looking for. So I can hold it up so I can view the bridge from my location and then be able to plot exactly where that moonrise is going to rise above the bridge. Okay. So that's what I'm going to do tomorrow. I'm going to make sure I get the prime day, because each day the moon's going to rise in a slightly different location because of the orbit. All right. So this allows me to really pinpoint the most pristine location for that moon above the bridge. All right.
Hey, Doc?
Yeah.
I've been using Photopills for a couple of years, and it is the best for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And to knowing when your blue hour and golden hour and all those things are. The other benefit is you get on their mailing list when you download the app, and they have more workshops for these kind of things to really help you.
Oh, I did not know that.
Oh,
that's awesome.
So
yeah,
I would encourage everyone to download that. It does cost something.
Yeah, but it's not expensive. It was like $12 or something like that, $9 or $12 something.
Any landscape photographer should have it.
Absolutely. The other thing I want to find out, and since you are familiar with it, maybe I'll ask you. I wonder if there's a way of capturing a screen grab of that AR view. That way,
I don't know that.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to look into it, because if once I'm at the bridge, if I can take a photo of the bridge with the augmented reality overlay, I can then share it with everybody on the Facebook group and say, hey, this is what we're going to be encountering. So.
Doc, have you?
Yep.
Doc.
Yes.
Is your phone an iPhone?
No, it's
Because iPhone you can't. An iPhone, it's the off and the on, 2 buttons. Okay.
Okay. I'm sure. I'm sure Android has something similar. I just need to look into it.
Doug,
Go to Google.
two things.
Yes.
I could probably show you 4 different ways to do that photo thing.
Okay.
Just do a screen grab. But another thing to look into, that Photopills.
Mhm.
I have another piece of software. It's called Skyview, and it's
Yes.
for looking at the stars. And it does the same thing. It's got the augmented reality.
Mhm.
But what it has an option in there somewhere is to take a picture of the screen. And I wouldn't be surprised if Photopills has got something built in somewhere to do
Yeah.
just that.
Well, to be honest, I've never had to share a screen, so I've never looked into that functionality. But now that, I'm planning an event, that's when that knowledge comes in handy. But this also has the night sky view where you can say, oh, there's Gemini, there's, Aries, there's Cygnus, there's everything. So, but yeah. So if, like everybody else mentioned, if you are a landscape photographer, that's an awesome app to have on your mobile device. Okay. Anywho, let's go ahead and get going here. What I want to do is let me switch over to the desktop view, Photoshop. All right. Right now, I currently do not have anything open. So one of the things that, as you guys know, being as a commercial photographer, I tend to work on a variety of projects for different types of clients, whether they're in manufacturing or they're into some kind of business to business service, whether it's, product photography or headshots or things like that. And more importantly, different companies may have different needs for their editing. So one of the things that I suggest is when you need to make notes, to go ahead and make the notes directly in the photo that you're going to be working on. And I'll just pick this one and go over to Photoshop. Where's Photoshop? Oh, here we go. Okay. Let's say you're looking to do something fancy with a particular client's photo, and you're in conversation with the client, and the client says, I'm going to need a couple of different variations of this scene. I'm going to need one that is perhaps cropped, kind of like more of a panorama. Then you can say, all right, we're going to do, let me just select like a nice bright red color. All right, and maybe let's just do 4 pixels. All right, so that way I can go ahead and notate right on my screen. What am I doing? Let's try that again. Let's try with the brush. Let's try, yeah. All right, so I can say, nice hard brush. And of course, Nothing wants to work, right? Okay. Right. We got red here. All right. Let's say I make a notation that I want to crop it here. Okay. Long crop. Or what you can do is you can just use the text tool. But usually when I'm taking notes, I tend to move fast, so I don't want to be shifting back and forth between a bunch of different tools. All right. So I'll just use a pen to make, my notes. All right. And maybe remove. Okay. So I can make my notes right on the screen as I'm working, and make as many notes as you want, and you can just turn the layers on and off. All right, so now the other one may be a square format. All right, square. Okay, and maybe it's a darken. Okay, so I can write notes to myself that are embedded in the file that I'm working on for the client, without having to resort to little pieces of paper all over my desk saying, okay, what was it that the client wanted me to do with this particular image? All right, and because you can label your layers, you can say note 1, or whatever you want to call it, note 2, okay? And the other thing you can do is you can color code these, all right? Usually something that, for me, a layer that is meant for me not to touch, I tend to label as a red. So that visually lets me know, hey, pay attention to this layer before you do anything to it. Don't delete it without understanding what it is that you are deleting. Okay. So that's actually another little tip if you want. Okay. And the nice thing is, if you have multiple notes, all right, you can group them and put notes. Okay. So that way you can toggle them on and off as needed, all right, and make your notations to write on in the file and save it with the file. That way, those notes will always follow that particular file, and you don't have to worry about either a secondary notepad file somewhere in your computer, or, like I said, the paper notes and things like that. Okay, so this is a great way of just being able to remind yourself about certain things that you've done to an image. Okay.
Hey, Doc?
Yeah.
Can you take 2 quick steps back and show us again what kind of layer you open there?
Oh, sure. All right, to make a note, you simply go down. I go down to the very bottom, and this little icon that has the little plus symbol, that creates a new layer. Or you can go layer, new layer, okay? Or Control-Shift-N. For Mac people, it's Option Shift. It's the option, yeah. Option Shift N. All right. Once you create it, it'll create a new blank layer. So as you can see, that layer is a pass-through layer. It's transparent. So anything you draw on it becomes visible. Okay. So I'll take a color that contrasts against whatever it is I'm drawing, and it'll either be either red, or it might even be yellow. All right. simply because they provide the easiest contrast across the board for your note taking. All right. And then the nice thing about it is that you can hide that layer and return to it anytime you either need to add additional notes or just refresh yourself. Okay. Like, for example, if they say they need 1920 by 1080, and that should have been red. Okay. You can say, oh, what was that crop supposed to be? You can go ahead and look at it right there. Okay. And this is nice because you can have your file open and you can be on the phone with the client discussing what their needs are and be writing your notes directly on there. Or if it's easier, write them on a piece of paper and pen, and then transpose those onto your file so you have them. Okay. This is kind of akin to the old days with the contact sheets, where we used a grease pencil on our contact sheet to mark, whatever it is that we needed to do to edit an image in darkroom, lighten this, darken this, whatever. Okay. Now, because we work in a digital space, I don't think we really need to get that detailed about our editing decisions, simply because editing today is what you see is what you get kind of workflow. Unlike in a dark room where you did not see the results until after you've developed the paper. Okay. So anyway, that's a nice little handy trick to keep yourself organized while you are editing. Okay. All right. Another thing that we kind of touched on different ways of making selections. The most common one, obviously, being the Lasso Tool. And that's where, let me just make that full size. That's where we go to the little Lasso Tool in our toolbox, click on it, and then we can, wherever we draw, that makes a selection. Okay?
Doc,
yes.
you were in front of where you took up the lasso tool.
Oh, okay. I see why. Let me squeeze this out a little bit. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Right here is the Lasso Tool. Okay. And of course, you can be very careful with your, making your selection. The other way of making a selection that I don't know if we really covered all that much is with the pen tool. All right. And you have a variety of choices available, but the first one's typically the one that you go with at first. And that allows you to place points and make all kinds of selections. All right. Now, this one requires some practice and requires some patience in learning it. But it's a great way of making selections. All right. And okay. But another way that is sometimes useful. I don't use this all too often, simply because I am not a nature or landscape photographer. But for those of you who are, and you need to do, those nice local adjustments, being able to paint on your image to make selections is a great way of editing your images. And the way you do that is you go down here, you're going to see a little icon that's got the screen with like a circular dotted line for selection. Okay, that's your quick mask tool. Another way of accessing is the letter Q. The letter Q will go into quick mask mode. And if you notice, as soon as I press the letter Q, that icon changes to, indicate that it's selected. And if you notice the layer I'm on, the color of this changes as well. All right, that lets me know that I'm in quick selection mode on that layer. Okay. And what that allows me to do is to pick a nice soft brush. All right. And I can paint right on here. Let me see where. Let me go to my brush here. All right, let me make a nice big selection. Okay, and I can paint. Let me make that a little softer. Bring the softness down. Okay. There we go. And I can use that. And everything that is red is now being selected. Okay. And of course, we can go to the eraser tool and we can erase from our mask as well. All right. And we can just toggle back and forth. The letter B will turn it into a brush. And the letter E will turn it into the eraser tool. Okay. So E, eraser tool, and if I hit the letter B, goes to the brush tool. And it's a great way of toggling back and forth. All right, so now, if you notice, everything that I'm painting on is turning red, or that rubylith color. All right. This is a great visual indicator of what is being selected. So now, if I say I want to create a curves adjustment, I click on my curves adjustment layer. Okay. And, oh, nope, I'm sorry. Let me back that up. I get out of my quick select. All right. And you'll notice that we have the marching ants. Okay. And I think I had my selection inverted. It actually selected everything outside of what. All right. So again, this goes to show how often I use this. I have it inverted, but that's okay. I still made my selection. Now, if I go to my curves adjustment, because I have a selection, those marching ants, when I hit the curves adjustment, it's going to create my curves adjustment, and it's going to automatically give me a mask. All right. Now, in this case, it's inverted. So all I have to do is Control I or Command I, and it inverts that mask. And now I can make my adjustments, and it's going to affect just those areas that I painted on. Okay. And because I used a nice soft feather, you can see that the edges kind of blend in very nicely. Right. So if I turn it off, turn it on, you can see that I really, just opened up those shadows. All right. All right. So that's a quick select. All right. Let me go back to the quick select. And if we click on where it is, properties, Windows, property. Oh, it is properties. Okay.
Doug, how did you get out of the map when it was all red? How did you?
Letter Q. Letter Q is the shortcut key. As you guys know, I love shortcut keys simply because it makes the editing process that much easier. But you can access it the same way down in this little icon here. Press it, unpress it, press it, unpress it. Okay. So now, let me see where my preferences are. Edit. I should have probably looked this up before getting into this. I don't even know. I'd have to look it up as to where the whatchamacallit, where does the oh, here it is. Okay. If I double click on that icon, it's going to bring up this quick select, quick mask option. All right. The color indicates the masked areas. All right. Make sure it's selected areas. That's going to make it visually more in line to how we understand. All right. And if you don't like that red color, you can change it here. I suggest sticking to very bright, unnatural colors. That way you're able to see what it is that you're painting the mask on. All right. So here I got this kind of like neon green. All right. Hit OK, hit OK. All right. I hit the quick select mask. All right. You notice that it changed the background color. All right. I actually want my background here. It changed it to that green color, indicating that's the color of my quick mask. Okay. So in this case, I want to use, let's go to, where's my, I'm in the wrong part here. Okay. Let me go to paint right on here. All right. Now, obviously, because I'm using a feathered edge, it's probably not the most ideal for an architectural thing. This is more for very organic editing. Again, landscapes. You could also use it if you do portraits. Let me pull up. Give me 1 second. Let me pull up a portrait. All right. Okay. Give that a second to load up. All right. So let's say I wanted to do, a skin softening. Okay. I can come here. All right. And where's my cursor stopped? Isn't this always the case? My cursor stopped responding. Not a week goes by. Not a week goes by, and now my cursor's not working. Why? Why? My Wacom tablet stopped working. Give me a second. Let me There we go. Hey, we got it back. Okay. So let's say I wanted to do some kind of, skin softening or something. And I wanted, nice, soft edges. I can go here and I can paint right on where I need to. All right. It's a nice visual way of creating a mask. Right? She looks horrendous with this mask on, but it allows me to, I'm not even in the mask. I'm doing good, guys. Let me revert. Okay. It'd be nice if we selected our mask first. There we go. Now we're making our selection. Okay, we got that nice ugly green contrasts against everything, so we know there's our mask. Okay, If we make a mistake, we just go to the eraser. I hit the letter E to go to the eraser mode. Okay, go back to my brush. You can brush whatever it is that you want. All right, you can make the edges as soft as you want. Okay. Once you got your selection, you hit the letter Q, which brings it out, makes it a selection. And then from there, you can apply whatever effect you want. All right. Curves adjustment. Now, if you need to make an adjustment to the mask, all you have to do is hit the Alt key, click on the mask, and it brings up the mask. And then you can make your changes. If you miss something, you can go ahead and refine it. If you need to soften it up more, you can soften it up. Click back on the curves here. All right. And that will allow you to and what is going on? My computer system is going nuts. All right. It's not my day, guys. It is really not my day. Okay. Spotlight. Yep, I am stuck. There we go. Okay. At what point do I just throw my hands up and call it quits, right? This is no way for you guys to learn. Oh, my God. All right. So I click on my curves adjustment and brings me out of the mask. All right, and you can see now that my mask is a little bit better, and you can make whatever adjustments to your image. Okay, so it's a nice, yeah.
Doc,
Yes.
I'm a little confused. How would a curves adjustment make her skin softer? I thought.
No. Yeah, no, don't. I'm not concerned about. I'm just picking examples of what you can do. All right. It's about making your selection. All right.
Okay.
Yeah, that I used the wrong terminology there. All right. But yeah, if you wanted to make her skin softer, then you would just, get that selection, maybe apply a blur, things like that. Okay. Or do.
What I do in a case like that is. What I do, tell me if I'm doing this wrong. To soften somebody's skin, I will select it, go into Camera Raw, and change and lower the clarity.
Yeah, okay. That's a quick and dirty way of doing it. But you run into the problem of possibly making it look too plasticky or too overdone. That clarity, you got to realize it's literally a smoothing out of the texture, the underlying texture. So it's like applying a high frequency separation and just really removing a lot of the detail across the board rather than in very specific areas. Usually, like for example, when I do frequency separation, I will only target very small specific areas of the skin that I want to smooth out. And I will smooth it out in very small increments. The clarity slider does not discriminate in that way. It just takes everything and then just removes the detail. So you have to be very, very careful with that clarity slider. In small doses, it helps if you want to just do a quick and dirty edit, by all means. But I'm talking really maybe about 5 to 8 points of clarity, not 10, 20, 40, because then it starts getting that really fuzzy, dreamlike effect. Unless that,
Yeah, I don't do it that much. I know what you mean about doing it too much.
But for skin softening, I have a few other different techniques that I use, simply because I want a little bit more control. All right, but for being able to make a quick selection, once you have your selection, you can apply whatever effect you want. I just happen to have said skin smoothing, but done the curves adjustment, which was my bad. Sorry for the confusion. All right. But the nice thing about it is, being able to go into that quick select. All right. I just press the letter Q. I can go ahead and paint whatever it is that I want to modify or make adjustment to. And I don't have to worry about trying to figure out, am I getting it all? Because I can see right on the screen exactly what it is that's being selected. All right. Now, the reason I'm using a soft edge is because it allows me to be a little sloppy with my selection. All right. And because the edges are soft, it makes for a nice, easy transition. So you really don't see too much of the border, unless, of course, you're doing some kind of really extreme editing. Okay. Oh, here I went out a little bit too far. I switch over to my eraser, back over to my brush. Where's my B for brush? All right. And I just paint right on my image. And once I'm happy with that selection, all right, I make sure I got everything. And because it's that god-awful neon green color, it makes visualizing it very, very easy. Once I have that selection, I go ahead and hit the letter Q again for quick mask. And I now have a selection that I can do whatever it is that I want. All right, so in this case, maybe I want to change her hair color to, that looks pretty cool. Okay. Give her nice purple hair. Now, obviously, there are going to be some areas that are being affected that I don't want. All right. So I can come back to my mask, press the Alt or Option key, click on the mask, and there's my mask. Right? Or I can just make sure that my mask is selected, select a brush, make sure that the foreground and background colors are black and white, and the letter D on your keyboard, letter D is your default colors, which is black and white. All right. So let's say you had yellow and maybe a red color here, okay? As soon as you go into your mask, if I click on my mask, it's going to change it to black and white, right? And obviously that yellow is not pure white, so it's going to give me some kind of gray, and that red color is not pure black, so it's going to give me some kind of really dark gray. I want to change it to straight black and white. I hit the letter D, and it goes to the default colors, okay? And then the letter X on your keyboard toggles between the foreground and the background color, all right? So I can toggle my foreground and background colors, okay? So black hides. All right, so I can go here and I can clean up my edge. very easily just by painting along. All right, and here I missed some. I hit the letter X, brings me my white, and I can go ahead and target those strands of color. And the nice thing is, because she's on a white background, I can be a little sloppy going over on that side. Okay, here I'm going to toggle back to my black color. All right, and you can clean up your mask very easily. And of course, the bracket keys, left bracket, right bracket, will change the size of your brush. All right, and I'm going to show you a little trick for that in a minute. And you can fine tune your selection along the edge. Okay, hair, I will tell you, is a bitch and a half to mask. So just be aware that you're going to take some time to mask out hair. Oops. There we go. All right. I'm not going to go too crazy, but there I've changed her hair from her natural brown to this funky purple. Okay. Just by making an on-screen visual selection. Okay. Any questions about this? Letter Q or that little icon all the way down here on the bottom. All right.
I have an older version of Photoshop. Will it work with that? Will Q work with that?
It should. That one goes. That utility goes back a long way. Okay. So it should be available in the older ones. Okay. Speaking of brushes, all right. Now, as I was working along here, all right, and if I need to make my brush size larger or smaller, okay, one of the things that I can do is I can open up my brushes here, all right, my brush settings. I can come down here to my size, my hardness, and I can make adjustments here, all right? Make it larger, make it smaller just by using these sliders, okay? Make it harder, make it softer, okay? But that's a pain in the butt, okay, to open up this dialog just to do that. One of the easier ways is to use your keyboard, and I mentioned it when I was talking about the quick mask. You use the bracket keys on your keyboard. The left bracket makes your brush smaller every time you tap it, and the right bracket makes your brush bigger. Okay? If you use the shift key in conjunction, it will control the softness and hardness of your edge. All right? So let me make a new layer. I'm going to, let me pick, all right. So here I have a soft edge, right? Shift and right bracket, I now have a hard edge, okay? Left bracket, I have a small brush. Right bracket, I have a large brush, okay? Now, this is a pain in the butt sometimes, simply because that means, you know, having to press that bracket key multiple times in order to make it larger or smaller. The other way you can do it is with the Alt key, all right? The Alt and then the Alt key and then your right mouse button, right? If you drag it left and right, it's going to change the size. All right? You can see as I drag my cursor back and forth, it modifies the size. All right? I'm using my left and right. Okay? If you go up and down, it changes the hardness, all right? And you're probably not going to see it too much, But if you look at that little black rectangle, all right, as you go up and down, you're going to notice that the hardness, I'm at 100% here. And if I go down, I am at 0% here. All right, so that's very soft. Okay. Let me pick a different color. It's very soft. Or if I press and hold the Alt key and move it down, I have a very hard. Okay, so that's a quick way of being able to adjust your brush very, very quickly, very, very easily by just pressing one key. Press and hold the Alt or Option key, and then your right mouse button, and then if you drag it up and down, it changes the hardness. If you drag it left and right, it changes the size. All right, and I think I can't even remember how to do the opacity, but anyhow, that's how you can change your brush shape or brush size on the fly. All right, any questions on that one? Okay, so that gives you several ways of modifying your brush. All right, another little quick, let me make my brush size small here. Another quick little tip is when you are working with layers, oftentimes you need to duplicate certain things, whether it's duplicate an effect, duplicate a selection, things like that. When you need to make a duplicate, for example, if I wanted to duplicate my hue saturation layer, all right, I can, where's my, doesn't want to right click now. Oh, there we go. I can right click and I can select duplicate layer from the pop-up menu, okay? And when I do that, it's going to make it whatever you name it, it's going to add copy, all right? So you're going to duplicate the layer, give it whatever name, and it's going to say copy, all right? Or you can go layer, duplicate layer, going to do the same thing, all right? Another way of doing it is the Control J. Control J will give you the same exact thing. But you have to make sure whatever you're looking to copy, make sure that that is selected when you do the Control J. Okay? And the last and final way of doing it is to press and hold the Alt key. All right? And in this case, you don't have to worry about which layer is selected because it's going to be determined by what you pick and click and drag. All right. So if I want to make a copy of this, I hold the Alt key down. All right. You can see that it says Alt and I click and drag that wherever I want. All right. And where is it? Here we go. Okay, and there's my copy. And of course, because I'm clicking and dragging, I can move that layer wherever I want. So if I say I need a copy of this curves adjustment underneath everything, I can hold the Alt key, click and drag that down, and it's going to make a copy underneath that whole stack wherever I place it. Okay. If you want to, let's say, here, let me delete layer mask. Okay, let's say I have a curves adjustment with a blank mask. Okay, and I want to take this mask, or let's say this mask. Okay. I want to take this mask and I want to copy it into this mask here. I just hold the Alt key, click and drag it up, all right? And it's going to ask me, do you want to replace that layer mask? Hit yes, and it copies it from there and applies it to your mask there, all right? Just by pressing the Alt key, clicking and dragging, okay? The other thing, all right, let's say you have, you know, some kind of layer with something on it, okay? You can make a selection of that, all right? And if you press and hold the Alt key, it's going to make a duplicate of that, all right? And hit Control D, it makes a duplicate, okay? And the nice thing about this is it's going to make the duplicate on the exact same layer as where you have it, okay? Let me put that on the top there, okay? Which is a little bit different than duplicating the layer with like a Control J, which basically just duplicates that as its own individual layer. All right, so this is a great way of, if you have some, like for example, you have a landscape and you're artificially placing some lights on street lamps, and you want to take what you did on one street lamp and duplicate it to the other street lamps. You can just make that selection. All right, make your where's my lasso tool? I can make my selection of whatever it is I want to copy, all right, and press the Alt key, and it will allow me to move it and place it wherever I want, okay? And if I press and hold it again, I'm going to make another duplicate. If I press and hold it again and move it, it's going to make another duplicate. And I can make as many duplicates as I want, all on the same layer. Okay? Any questions on that? Let me clean up this layer stack here. We're getting really nuts. Okay?
Hey, Doug?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't do effects that often, so my question is, why would I sometimes want to use, when do I want to use a hard brush and when do I want to use a soft brush? I understand the idea of feathering, but I don't understand the idea of soft and hard.
Okay. A hard brush, depending on the effect, okay, so I'm going to create, all right, let me go into the quick mask. Whoa. Let me get out of there. Okay, quick mask. Okay. I'm going to select my brush. I'm going to make the hardness, all right? I'm going to make the hardness 100%, all right? And you can see that it's going to give me a hard edge, okay? And I'm going to just make a selection here, okay? Now I'm going to reduce the hardness down to 0%. So 0% hardness means it's a really soft brush. And I'm going to make another selection here. Okay. So I have two areas. The top one is very soft edged. The bottom one is very hard edged. Okay. Now, that's going to give me two very distinct, different lighting effects if what I want to do is create some kind of like maybe a highlight, right? So here I go with my ever famous curves adjustment, all right? And if I brighten those up, you can see one transition very naturally. Well, the bottom one looks more man-made, okay? Now, let's put it into something that we can relate to. when we are out taking photos in natural day in natural light, how do we determine the quality of the light? How do we determine the quality of the light? Anybody? Oh, come on, guys. You guys got to have the answer to that one. We're outside using sunlight.
It depends on the sun.
What's that?
It depends on where the sun is.
Nope. We're looking at the quality of the light, not the position of the sun. The quality of the light.
Are you talking temperature?
Nope, quality. All right. So what's quality? All right.
Is it like a
Hard,
cloudy version?
hard light, soft light, right? That determines.
Are you talking about diffuse light? Like it's a sunny day, but the sun is over the cloud. And
Yep.
The cloud is over the sun. Okay.
Right. So how do we determine that quality?
By the softness of the ambient light or the hardness of the ambient light?
Not the light. Something else.
Shadow.
The shadow. Absolutely. Yes. If we want to determine what our light quality is outside, we look at how the shadow transition is between light and shadow. If we see a soft transition, that is considered a soft light. The softer the transition, all right, that would be soft light. If we see a very hard transition, we determine that's very hard light. Correct? Makes sense. All right, so now when we are using Photoshop, our job within Photoshop may be to replicate certain lighting conditions. We want to enhance the light on our portrait. So we want either hard light or soft light. And that's going to determine what kind of brush we use, whether we use a soft edge brush for that soft light, that soft transition between the effect we are applying, all right, the effect we are applying in relation to where the effect is not being applied, all right? So this here is soft, right? And this here is hard. Make sense? Okay. So now, when we look at these two, we can see one looks more natural than the other. All right? Simply because you wouldn't see that kind of shadow normally. Okay? Unless you're using some kind of kooky or you're getting that dapple light through the trees and it's very hard light, all right. But even then, it won't be this hard, okay. It won't be this hard. Here, okay. This might be used when you're doing architectural retouching where you have a lot of man-made edges, or if you're doing product photography where there are a lot of man-made edges. At that point, your mask needs to follow that definition between where you want the effect and where you don't, okay? So for portraiture, for landscapes, when I want to do dodging and burning, maybe, enhancing colors or enhancing contrast, I'll want to use a soft brush. For product photography, where I need to, make color corrections, where I have to, photograph one item, but I got to show it in blue and red and in green, I might use Photoshop to alter those colors. And in that case, I'm going to need that hard edge in order to, section off the parts that I need to recolor. Okay. Now, even in that case, I will still have some kind of edge softness. Depending on the size of my brush, I will have usually maybe about 80 or 90% hardness. I very, very seldom will use a brush at 100% hardness. Okay? Simply because in nature, you're not going to find that very strict edge. All right? When it comes to, all right, like, let me zoom in here. Okay. The pupil, or the iris, I should say, in relation to maybe the skin tone or the shadows of the skin, this is a relatively hard edge, correct? But if we zoom in, you'll notice that it's really not 100% contrast here between the iris and the white. There's a transition of 2 or 3 pixels. So when I select a brush, all right, and I want maybe to make a mask, all right, I'm going to want a mask that gives me that 2 to 3 pixel difference. All right. Now, here it is. This is at 93% hardness, and you can see that the difference. Let me make that a little bit more obvious here. Okay. That's a very hard edge that I'm applying, right? Just to the iris. So that's going to create a very noticeable edit. You're going to be able to look at this and say, you may not kind of, laser pinpoint exactly what's wrong, but you're going to say, something's been edited here. It looks a little funky. And that's because that edge transition is not natural. All right. So I would go to something like an 80% transition. Let me make my brush smaller here. All right. And you can see now on this side, all right, I'm just going to do the left side with this 80%. All right. You're going to notice that it's a little softer than that 90%. Okay. Not by much, because like I said, it really is dependent on the size of your brush. So if I make my brush really, really large, okay, and I paint, all right, you'll notice the difference between here and here. This one is a lot more contrasty than this one, simply because it's 80% to the size of your brush. Okay. I kind of wish Photoshop would handle this a little bit different by being able to specify how much of a blend by pixels, but I can understand that would be, really, really awkward in handling that. So now if let's say I do a 50%, let me type in 50%, okay, bring my size down, all right, and then if I paint along this edge, all right, you can see how much blurrier that edge is. So that's going to make it look a lot more natural when you go to do your retouches. Okay?
So, are you saying that if you're selecting the pupil, in the center of your selection, you're doing a hard brush, and then only on the edge?
No, I would use the soft brush for the whole thing. Yeah. More often than not, let me delete that. More often than not, the way I do it is I will make the size that I need, and then just paint it in very quickly. All right. And you can see how nice and soft those edges are. And that's at 50%. All right. So now when I zoom out, all right, and I just need to, maybe brighten up her eyes a little bit there. Okay. There we go. It's a very subtle. Let me make it a little bit more obvious. Let me zoom in. Okay. Make it a little more obvious. Turn it off, turn it on, turn it off, turn it on. All right. You can see how it brightened her eye up. Okay. But because I have that soft edge, you're not seeing a hard, that hard border on her pupil, on her iris, I should say. Okay. So that's when you would use, you would be considerate of whether you're using a hard brush or a soft brush. Okay. Now here in an architectural situation, all right, let me zoom into the roof. All right. In this particular case, here I will probably use a harder edge brush. All right. And my default is typically 80%. I very, very rarely will go harder than 80%. All right. So now when I make my edge, let me just shape dynamics off. Okay. Let me not Alt delete. Control Alt delete. There we go. Let me zoom in. All right. So even here, you can see that the pixel edge, because of lens aberration, it's like 2 pixels difference. All right. So if I make my brush selection and I make my edge, that 80% is going to give me a nice natural transitional edge from one side to the other. Okay. Let me make this multiply.
And if you do 80% for a good transitional edge, does this mean you could do without feathering?
Well, that is my feather.
Okay, good.
All right.
I was thinking of feathering in select, I guess. All right.
Well, yeah, you know what? And that's the thing. Yeah, you have to be aware of what it is that you are editing. Or what it is that you're making a selection of in order to apply the appropriate amount of edge transition. Okay? If you make your edge transition and you say, you know what, it's a little bit too soft, you can always harden it up by applying a little bit of contrast to it. Okay? Or if it is too hard and you're looking at the effect and it's very obvious because you can see the border, you can say, oh, that edge needs to be softened up. And then you can artificially soften it with a little bit of Gaussian blur. Or if it's on a mask, you can feather the edge after the fact, okay? But I tend to want to make sure that when I make my initial selection, I make it appropriate to the work that I'm doing. And like I said, my default go-to setting is 80%, right? If I'm using a bigger brush, I might push it to 90%, but I very, very, very rarely will use 100% because it just looks so bad. All right, let me go back here. Let me make this 100%. Okay, let me move this over, and I'm going to make my edge. All right. And Alt, where am I? Let me delete that and make a curves adjustment. Okay. Yeah, in this case, it's not that noticeable. All right. Because it is a very artificial edge to begin with. All right. But for something that's not artificial, like tree lines and things, I might go with something that is a little softer. All right. Again, I'm also using a very small brush. So let me, all right. See, there's a hard brush. All right. Now, here is where the problem lies. All right, when you're using a hard brush. The way a brush works is it takes a shape and it stamps it. All right, and depending on how fluid you make your brush will determine how far apart between stamps. Obviously, something that stamps very, very tightly together, it's going to be a little bit more, it's going to be a little bit more smoother, but it's also going to be a little bit more resource intensive because it's applying that stamp a lot more often, all right? But it's going to give you a smaller or a smoother edge, okay? Let me go to my shape. Oh, no, right here. My spacing. Okay. So that's at 25%. All right. Let me bring this. Oops. Let me bring this down to 0 or 1%. All right. And make my edge transition. Now, if we compare this side to this side, you can see the valleys between stamps as compared to this. This is going to be a lot smoother, okay? For a round brush, probably not a big deal. You're not going to, be eating up noticeable resources, but some brushes that have a lot of texture and a lot of other effects, it could really bog your system down depending on your system configuration. So be aware of that, okay? All right. Any questions about brush edges, duplicating things and things like that?
Yep.
Okay. The last thing I want to show you is, let me get rid of that. The last thing I want to show you is what are called scrubby labels. Scrubby labels. Let me get a brush. Let me get a god-awful color here. Let me change that to normal. There we go. Okay. Let's say I have a layer and I want to apply some transparency to it. All right. I'll go over, I'll have my layer selected. I'll go over to where it says opacity. And if you click on that little down arrow, it's going to give you a scrubby bar. All right. And all you got to do is just move that slider and it's going to adjust the transparency of that layer. Okay. Very simple, right? The other way is you can highlight the whole thing and you can type in a number if you want a very specific number. Okay. But the nice thing about this is if you hover over the label, all right, you can see how my cursor changes to that hand with a double arrow. All right. I can then click on that label, and if I move it left and right, it's going to change that value. And all I got to do is just scrub back and forth until I get the amount of opacity that I want. Okay. Works the same way with fill. All right. If you have something with properties, all right, let's say you want to change the size of that, all right, you can scrub anywhere that has a label where it has an input, you can scrub and it will make those changes. Okay, so that's a nice, easy way of being able to do it on the fly. All you do is hover, and click and drag left or right. Okay. All right. Any questions?
Doug,
Yes.
Why was there the outline of the chimney?
Because when I made that initial selection, I did not delete the whole selection.
Thank you.
So I did not clean properly up after myself. All right. Okay. All right. So those are all the little tips and tricks to make your editing life a little bit easier. Okay. I know it's a lot to try to remember, but like I've said before, when you start applying these on a regular basis, they become habit. So if you found one of these to be the most helpful, start with that one. Whether it's the little scrubby zoom or it's the quick selection mask, okay? Practice that a couple of times until it becomes second nature, all right? Try to incorporate it into your workflow. That way, you know, it becomes ingrained in how you work with your images. So you don't even have to think about it. It just becomes kind of second nature. Once you get to that point, pick another tip and say, hey, this is the other one I wanted to learn. Start incorporating that into your workflow, right? And pretty soon you'll be flying through your edits very, very quickly. And of course, time is money, all right? Okay. Any questions on anything we covered?
Not a question, but I have information for you.
Info.
In your Photopills,
Yes.
when you're in the augmented reality, if you tap the action button, you can have a screenshot that you can save.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. I am definitely going to be looking into that. Like I said, I'm going to be going to New Haven to do my scouting tomorrow morning. So if anybody's not doing anything and wants to join me, let me know.
I'll be working.
What time you think of going out there, Doc?
After 10.
That's overrated working.
Yeah. Remember, we got Toastmasters at noon.
Oh, that's right. Yes. Yeah, it'll be before Toastmasters.
Okay. Let me know when you're headed out. I might join you.
Okay. Yeah, it'll probably be around 10. So, you know, I can swing by and pick you up if you want.
I'll just meet you there. Come in different directions. We can probably zero in.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll see how it's going. I'd be interested.
Okay. I'll definitely let you know. And it'll be a quick trip, simply, scouting where the moon's going to rise and pretty much finding our location. I also have to find out about parking. I don't know how many people are going to want to do the night shot, but it is on a bridge. The location I'm scouting, so you can't park on that bridge. You got to park further up. But there's a little business there, and I'm gonna ask them if we can park at night while they're closed, get their permission.
Hey, Doug.
Yes.
Where do you think this is that are you scouting just one place?
Yeah, because I want to coordinate it with the moonrise.
Okay, where is this place?
It is. Let me pull up Google Maps, and I will show you exactly. Actually, you know what? Here, I'll do one even better. Ephemeris, .com. Sign in. Okay. What I'm going to do, all right, if you've never used Ephemeris, what it is it gives you a map of your area, and it's got this pin, right? And you can drag this pin anywhere you want, okay? And if you zoom in, all right, so here's the Q bridge right here, all right? And in front of the Q bridge is a lower bridge that raises and lowers.
Yeah, the
Okay.
Tomlinson Bridge.
Is that what that's called?
Yeah.
It's Forbes. I just know it as the Forbes Avenue Bridge. All right. So my initial thought was to shoot from the boathouse, which is right here. All right.
Okay, if you're going to shoot from the boathouse.
Wait.
Okay.
That was my initial one.
All right.
Okay. Which is a very ugly view of the bridge, because we have the Tomlinson Bridge in front. All right. And it's a very awkward angle. Okay. It's not the best one. And it doesn't allow for the placement of the moon behind the bridge. All right. So I quickly dismissed this one. But that was when I first thought of it. That was my initial thought, because it's easy access. There's plenty of parking. We can be on that deck and nobody's going to bother us. Okay. That was my initial one. After scouting it, I decided it's going to be on this bridge, which is the Chapel Street Bridge off of East Street. Okay. And if we go to, what was it? June 23rd. Okay. These blue lines represent our moonrise moonset. All right. And you can see the moon starts rising at 7:39. Okay. 7:39. All right. And as I drag this bottom slider here all the way at the bottom, my marker's off with Chrome. All right. If I move that, you'll notice that blue line starts moving. Okay. And you can see now what that is our line of sight from that bridge to the moon. All right. So if I am positioned here where this pin is, all right, if I'm positioned there, that's my line of sight to the moon. So if I want that moon over that bridge, it's got to be around 11:30 at night. Okay? So this is a great tool that tells me in general terms where I need to be in a location to be able to get that heavenly body in the composition. All right. So now that I understand this, all right, and if I go to the following day, June 24th, okay, you can see that it's probably even later, and then June 25th, okay, it puts it even later. All right. But what I did is I went to my Photopills, all right, to see exactly how high above the horizon it was going to be, all right, because it's hard to visualize the altitude of that celestial body from Photo Ephemeris, okay? It kind of gives you a visualization along this graph at the bottom, but it's hard to read. You know, you have to really spend time with this. That's why I like Photopills, because the AR version gives me a better view. And I'm thinking that somewhere around Wednesday, the 23rd, is going to be the best day. All right, because I can be pretty much anywhere on that bridge, and I'm going to get that full moon behind the bridge. Okay, but like I said, there's a 3-day window to a full moon. So that's why I want to go on location with my camera, my cell phone camera, with the augmented reality to get a pinpoint of exactly where that moon's going to be. And that's what I'm going to do. Okay? All right, because I can swipe the timeline in Photopills, all right, and you will see it's got a little photo of a moon that's going to bring it along that transit line, and you're going to see at what time, because you're looking at the bridge through the camera, it's superimposing the augmented reality, and you can see exactly where the path is going to be and how high the moon's going to be for your shot. And you know at that exact moment in time is going to be your ideal frame. And that's what I want to find out tomorrow. Make sense? Mm-hmm. All right. So that's how you scout locations when you want to do some kind of night photography, or even day photography, because right now I have the sun turned off, all right, because I just was concerned with the moon. But if you go here, we can turn the sun on, and you can see the orange lines here. That's the direction of our sun. And if we scrub, all right, that's the view of our sun. So this is, what is it? That's sunrise right here. This is where it breaks the horizon, okay? The physical Earth horizon, not the horizon over any buildings or local hills or stuff, okay? That's where it actually, the physical horizon. And then this darker orange is where it sets. Okay? So you can see exactly what direction. All right? So let's say I wanted to take a picture of the bridge during the day. I know I don't want to be there at 1 o'clock because that puts the sun directly behind the bridge. Okay? I would want to take that probably anywhere from 6 o'clock to about 8 o'clock. And that's going to give me nice side light on that bridge. I can tell just by looking at this indicator line of where the sun's going to be. And of course, this right here, the bar graph, that gives us our elevation. All right, how high it's going to be. All right. So the highest point is going to be somewhere around 1230. Okay, that's our highest point. And it puts it directly behind the bridge where we don't want it. We'll get a lot of glare, a lot of backlighting, and so on. Okay. But if we keep going forward, we can see now that at about 3:30, 4 o'clock, we're now getting a backlit cross light that might make it really pleasant. Okay? So that's how you use Photo Ephemeris. Right?
Hey, Doc,
Yes.
you might also want to Crisculo Park, which is just down and to the right of where your pin is. It's a park that has unobstructed views of the bridge.
Yes.
And there is parking on James Street there.
Yeah. I don't know how it is nowadays, but years ago I used to work in this area, and that was a very sketchy part of the neighborhood.
It still is.
Is it? Okay. Yeah, so that's why, I wanted to kind of, let me zoom in here. This business right here, I'll put the pin on that. This business right there has a nice large front parking area. And I'm going to knock on their door and see if we can use it that night. So, okay. Any questions about Photo Ephemeris? Very simple to use. It's the desktop version is free. As you saw, you have to, register your account, but it's free to use. If you want the cell phone app version, it does cost you. It's not very expensive. It's just like Photopills. But I think as the phone app, Photopills is a lot easier to use and has more functionality than Photo Ephemeris. Okay? All right. So, all right, let me close that out and let's see. Bonnie had a question when I first logged on, and I asked her to wait till we were recording and everybody was here before she asked it. So I will ask Bonnie to go ahead and ask her question.
My question deals about the Photoshop and the Lightroom $10 a month subscription that's out there. Is it worth it? And what I find is that I have the older versions, and when you do a class, it's very difficult to coordinate with you because I have the older version and I don't have all the same tricks that you do. So is it worth it?
Okay. The answer to that is going to be dependent on the type of photography that you do and the amount of editing that you do, all right, and the tools needed to do that editing. Now, everything that I do can be done with older versions, even though they may not have the same functionality. There are workarounds to some of the more recent functionalities. They're just a little bit more manually intensive, simply because Photoshop has been putting a lot of research and development into their AI, which is their Sensei, Adobe Sensei engine. All right. And what that's doing is it's automating a lot of the processes that we used to do manually in the olden days. So a lot of things like auto selection, subject selection, refine edges, those are all handled by Adobe Sensei. And if you were to do it in an older Photoshop, you would have to do it manually. So what you need to ask yourself is, how often do I need to do that kind of editing where it would make it worth my while to invest in the modern tools as compared to doing it manually the old way? All right. That would be probably the first question. If the answer is, well, I don't really do that kind of high-tech, high-end editing, everything that I need is available with the older version, in that case, save yourself some money. And now when it comes to Lightroom, it's a lot of it is the same thing. They are now moving, not only Lightroom, but Photoshop, they're moving in the direction of being cloud-based software. Whether your opinion on that is good or bad, that's the future of computing. All right. In a way, it makes sense because our computers tend to get old and outdated a lot faster than a computer that is handled by a company that has millions of dollars to invest in their equipment. So the cloud-based system puts a lot of the labor on their computers and less on ours. So all we have to do is have a machine that is strong enough to be able to handle the graphics kind of like in a browser situation. And all the heavy process will be done by their mega computers and easing up the processing that you do on your computer. That's where we're moving, going forward. That's why you're seeing a lot of these cloud-based systems. And if you were to compare older Photoshop and older Lightroom to now, if you know what to look for, you'll notice that a lot of the UI, the user interface, all right, how the labels are arranged, the sliders, the panels, those are all now HTML, CSS, web-based technology. But it's still in a desktop version, but it's moving towards that web-based technology. We're getting away from the OS, the operating system user interface, to a more global cloud-based user interface. So again, you have to weigh it. Are you going to outgrow your software because of your hardware? And this is one of the issues that I had way back when with Lightroom, where I went to upgrade to the next version of Lightroom, and it did not want to play nice with the hardware. I had to update the hardware, okay? Which is the other case, especially with Adobe Camera Raw and Lightroom, which uses the same engine as Adobe Camera Raw. Because there is no standard RAW format, every company has their own different style formats. And even between models of camera, they're always tweaking and changing. All right. So now you buy a new camera, which the RAW file is not recognized by your old software. So what you got to do now is you have to upgrade the software to meet the level of your camera.
Wow.
That was the other issue I experienced with Lightroom. I had a 4D. And this is what prompted me to have to upgrade. I bought a 7D, which was not supported by the version, Lightroom version that I had at the time. I had to go from version 3 to version 4. So it was this very frustrating cascading event. I bought a new camera. Lightroom didn't recognize it. I upgraded Lightroom. The computer didn't want to handle it. I had to upgrade my computer. All right. So it all snowballed. Okay. Now, will the same things happen? Well, if you're on a subscription based, you're always going to get the latest update. So that includes updating all the camera profiles for Camera Raw. So you don't have to worry about that. It's going to be done automatically. All right. Where you are going to get into problem is in some of the hardware. And that's the point I'm at now. I am experiencing issues with Photoshop. I don't know, a couple sessions back, I told you that I was having issues, that I lost functionality in my scrubby zoom. I lost my rotate, all right, and a few other things. Oh, I also lost OpenGL, which is the processor, the graphics processor that Photoshop relies on very heavily to do some of the effects. Like, for example, I cannot use the oil paint brush effect because OpenGL is no longer active. All right. And that's because my graphics card is now out of date with the latest version of Photoshop. So I have to update my graphics card. But it's a lot less expensive than having to buy a whole new computer. I just got to replace that graphics card. Okay. So it becomes this balancing act between what you need as far as your workflow, which is determined by the kind of photography that you do. And then that balance between the hardware of your camera, hardware of your computer, and the overall software to run it. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Let me just add one more little note to that. Okay? Is if you don't want to go into a subscription based, all right, you're stuck with what you have. Simply because Adobe has moved to a subscription based, and you really can't, they've stopped developing the standalone versions. Okay. However, there are alternate companies that are very much similar to Photoshop and Lightroom that are open sourced and made available free to the public. They have their own headaches because now, while they may mimic a lot of what Photoshop can do, they're not going to give you the true Photoshop experience because, for example, the leading one is GIMP. GIMP is an open source photo editor very akin to Photoshop. But because it's open source, meaning the public is responsible for maintaining and developing, they don't have the research and development and the backing power of all the computers over at Adobe, that it's a standalone and relies strictly on your computer to handle all the processing. So there's no artificial intelligence. There's no fancy anything. There's very little automation, all right, that you come to, expect in Adobe products. All right. The other thing is, while they try very hard to be compatible industry-wise with Photoshop files, there are a little bit of discrepancies. So you can create something in GIMP and somebody else will open it up in Photoshop and they may get some weirdness. Okay, so you have to be careful with that. Likewise with Lightroom, there is Darktable. Darktable is an open source version of Lightroom that does a lot of the same things that Lightroom does. All right. But again, it's not an Adobe product. It's not, it is open source. So you're not going to have all the bells and whistles. All right. But it comes close. I got to hand it to them. It will do what you need it to do. Okay. So if you don't need the bells and whistles and you do want to save yourself some money, then go with that option.
All right.
All right.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your help.
All righty. Hopefully I didn't confuse you too much.
No.
Okay. All right. All right, guys. We got maybe 5 more minutes if anybody wants to get any last minute questions.
I have a real simple question. Almost too simple for Photoshop. I wanted to do a quick and dirty collage, just 2 pictures side by side, and I really just wanted to pop them in and have them, side by side and put them out. Does Photoshop have something to do that, or? I've done it on my phone. They got a little collage maker or something like that.
Yeah, no. It. Not that I know of.
Okay.
All right. But to do a side by side, depending on how you wanted to handle it, if you're looking to constrain it within a certain size, you would basically create your document to the size that you need, all right, and then drag and drop the images, all right. So let's say I wanted to put this this photo of the house here. All right, let me get rid of all these other layers just to keep things simple, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an empty layer, drop it down underneath, all right? So I have a blank layer and I have the layer with the house, okay? I'm now going to go to here and I'm going to click and drag that to this one. All right, and there's my image of the person, right? So now I want to say I want to put her here, all right, and I want to put the house, let me hide that. I want to put the house maybe like here, all right? I would then create a mask. Make a selection, all right, and go ahead and fill that with black. Oops. Let's see, delete. Okay. Get rid of that. And I now have a 2-panel, quick and dirty, but it's a 2-panel composite. Okay. Where I'm using a mask.
Yeah, I know about this, but did I just see you drag a layer from one?
Yes.
File to the other?
Did
I never.
Did you not know that? Okay.
No.
All right. Let me.
That's worth the price of admission.
All right. So I want to take this this image and move and put it on my other one. All I got to do is click and drag, go over here, and oops, I missed. Click and drag, go over here, all right, and drop it. And then once I drop it, you can, put it wherever you want. You can resize it. Obviously, if you resize it, get out of there. It's Control T. Okay. I'm gonna resize it down a little bit. Oh, too much. Okay. And then I obviously need to fill my background with whatever I need, okay? And then just apply masks, all right? I need to hide this part of the upper layer, which is her layer. So I'm going to create a marquee, M for marquee, all right? And if you don't know how far to make your marquee, let me just hide that layer, all right? It's still selected, but I'm hiding it. And I can then say, okay, I need to be right about here in order to show it, all right? I bring that back. I create my mask. Oops, I need to invert my mask. There we go. Okay. And then I need to fill this upper area, right? So I can make another mark. I can get my brush. I'm going to Alt turns it to that color picker. I'll click on that background color. Okay. And oh, I'm on my mask. Okay, here we go. Click on that background color. You see it changes here. All right, that's now my color. Okay. I'm going to make a selection. All right. Take my brush, make it bigger, paint on there, get rid of that. All right. Or actually, here, I'll do one even better. Okay. I'll do one even better. Let me back that up. Okay. I'm going to make a marquee. All right. And I'm going to make sure that I go over this area. All right. But not into her hair. I'm just picking that background. Okay. And I'm going to go to Edit, Content Aware Fill. I'm going to erase all that hair part. I'm going to look at my preview. All right, it's working here. And there it is. It filled it in. I say OK. Give it a second. Oh, my machine is like super slow. What's going on? There we go. Deselect, and there I go. I've now extended above her head because I have a simple background. Okay. All right, and we can take that and merge it down if we want. Okay. There you go. Simple 2-panel composite.
Thank you.
Alrighty. There are other ways, obviously, depending on how much maneuverability you need. All right. You can also create these placeholder panels. Wow, my machine's really slow now. I did something to it. Oh.
Hey, Doug, I have to jump off. Thank you. This was very helpful tonight.
No problem. All right. And where are we? Oops.
Well, while you're looking, if I can make one more plug for Bonnie, on Bonnie's behalf, I was in the same situation as you when I started hanging around with Duck, and I think it's 3+ years maybe. But I finally decided it was worth it if I was serious about this. And to me, that $10 a month was really worth it, and I didn't even consider Lightroom. That was just sort of an extra for me, but what that's helped me with is just well more than worth it. So, yeah. Well, the short answer is, hell yeah, it's worth it.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is worth it. But again, you know, I am not in your shoes, so you need to weigh the situation for yourself, you know.
With my luck, I'll have to end up getting a new computer only because I wanted to pay $10 a month. You know?
Actually, I think there is, don't hold me to this, but I think somewhere in my travels, I saw that Adobe had a little thing where it will check your system to see if it's compatible with their software.
Good to know.
So you might want to look that up. Photoshop compatibility. I don't even know what they would have called it, but okay. I think I ran into that somewhere along the way a few years back, and I said, "Oh wow, I never knew this was there." So you might want to look into that. Basically, what they do is they check. They access your system information that your operating system collects. All right, which tells Adobe, do you have the necessary hardware? Do you have the necessary memory? And do you have the necessary storage capacity to handle their software? Okay. And it will let you know that whether your machine can handle it or not in its current configuration. Okay. Yeah, where I'm running the problem is Adobe recently, again, this is because they're using Adobe Sensei, which is a lot more labor intensive. All right. They're applying a lot of this labor work to your graphics card. And the graphics card requirements for their current version is 2 megabytes of memory. And my graphics card only has 1. So but my graphics card is almost 10 years old. So it's lasted quite a bit. So I got to upgrade to a newer memory card. But it saves me from having to buy a new computer. So instead of paying $2,500, $3,000 for a new computer, I just spend, $600, $700, $800, whatever, for the new graphics card. And I've saved myself some money. The only problem is right now, COVID has made getting graphic cards almost impossible. A lot of the manufacturers shut down during COVID, and there are literally none to be had. So, all right, guys. As always, it is a pleasure hanging out with you. Thank you for joining me this evening. I'm looking to get people into the studio for a little interactive studio sessions. So I'm going to reach out to Brian and schedule something with him because, well, to be honest, he was my first Patreon member and he was the first one to ask. So I'm going to give him first, what's it called? First rights of refusal. All right. So, we're going to get into the studio for our Q&A session. All right. So next Monday, next Monday, I'll figure something out, but hopefully the Monday after that, we'll have Brian here. And then I will be opening it up to other Patreon members as well. So thank you once again. Please enjoy yourselves. And if you can make it out to either the night shoot or for the Q Bridge, once I get this date set, or the Multiplicity shoot, that would be great. Any of these two here. Okay. And if you would like to see some other live workshops, please feel free to drop it into the Facebook group. That way other people can, voice their interest in it. And if there's enough interest, we'll put something together. Okay. Thank you once again, everybody. Have yourself a safe week.
Thank you,
Stay
Doug.
out of trouble and don't do anything I wouldn't.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Night, Doug.
Thank you for watching Learning Photography with Duck. Brought to you in association with Milford Photo, your local full-service camera store. Located in downtown Milford, Connecticut, Milford Photo offers you a personalized shopping experience. From the latest camera gear to printing and framing services. And, of course, educational workshops to teach you the finer aspects of photography. Don't forget to tell them Duck sent you.